Alright, so this is a video about my experience of using the iPhone 12. Now the reason why I got this is mainly because my sister's previous iPhone it carked it was just shot to bits. So this iPhone 12 is for her, but she was kind enough to allow me to spend a week or so using it, getting to know the ins and outs of this phone. Now I shot some quick footage of the unboxing experience when the iPhone had first arrived. And the thing that struck me, as most of you guys have figured out by now, was how much smaller the box of the new iPhone is. It's thinner, it's lighter, and it's mainly attributable to what Apple is touting as an environmentally friendly move, but more on that later. Opening up the box is easy enough, so you shouldn't have any reasons to drop it day of launch. You're immediately presented with iPhone 12 face down, front and center. No clear plastic surrounding your new iPhone this time round, so for those of you looking for that ASMR plastic peel, sorry to say it's no longer here. Instead, just lift up on the tab and peel away the screen sticker, turn it on, set it aside, see what else is there. And as I mentioned, it's not a whole lot. You get a USB-C to Lightning cable, a SIM card ejector tool, some paperwork, one Apple sticker, but there's no charging brick, there's no headphones, there's no Lightning to headphone jack adapter. All these changes are in line with Apple's message of becoming more environmentally friendly. However, I'm sure most of you have figured out that having a USB-C to Lightning cable, it's not the smartest of moves for someone or something that's trying to prevent e-waste. Most people upgrading to this phone, such as my sister, are likely coming from iPhone models that have only ever included the USB-A charging adapter, rendering this cable completely useless. It's not the smartest of ideas from Apple, but I guess it takes solace in the fact that you can still plug it into your MacBook Pro without the need for an adapter. Anyway, let's talk about design. The iPhone 12 has a revamped, boxed off design that matches the exact size and dimensions as that of the Pro model. In the hand, this iPhone has a more defined feel, particularly around the edges. This is something I am definitely a fan of. Oftentimes I've found that with the previous iPhones or the Samsung S series or even my own OnePlus 7 Pro, those phones have a more rounded, curved design which often resulted in less confident one-handed experiences. In comparison to such phones, the 12 is much grippier, but of course, this may not be an issue for most people, presumably because most people will be using cases. Now the 12 also has these matte aluminium sides, which don't feel as premium as the stainless steel of that of the Pro models or the older iPhone 10 for that matter. It does, however, look, I think, subjectively better, mainly because it doesn't pick up any fingerprints. Again, this is not an issue for those that are probably going to use a case. The back is glass, which underneath houses the new MagSafe charging accessory system. Now, I don't have any accessories on me to show you this in action, but ultimately, I think we all have to wait and see what other use cases can come out of this MagSafe system. Currently, I'm not convinced from what I've seen that it's a revolutionary feature, especially because the magnets don't appear that strong. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. In terms of layout, the iPhone 12 has the power button on the right, volume rocker and notification slider on the left, nothing on the top, and a speaker grill and a Lightning charging port on the bottom. Now, like everyone else, I too am super frustrated at Apple's stubbornness to switch to USB-C on the iPhone. But given the likely move to a completely wireless iPhone in the near future, this is probably the reason why they just haven't made that jump. The other thing to mention about design is that when you place down the iPhone on a flat surface, there still is a noticeable wobble given a slight camera bump there. Moving on to the screen. This is where the 12 really shines. Apple has updated the screen from the iPhone 11 so you can get a higher pixel density at 460 ppi versus 326 ppi, OLED instead of LCD for higher contrast ratio and HDR support, and you still get the same 6.1-inch screen, all but in a smaller smartphone body with slimmer bezels. It is only slightly outperformed by the 12 Pro's display, which has a higher brightness of 600 nits as opposed to 500 nits, but overall outdoor usability is still great, and it still gets the peak brightness of 1200 nits for HDR video. All in all, the 12 really knocks it out of the park when it comes to display quality. UI and text look crisp, photos and videos have great color accuracy and amazing contrast, viewing angles are great without off-axis color shift, and there's honestly not a whole lot that I can complain about. However, two things need to be mentioned as potential downsides. First, There's no high refresh rate, so you are stuck with 60 Hz. Now, this is not a feature most iPhone users will be used to, and given that the iPhone 12 Pro doesn't even have ProMotion, I think it will be some time before we see this feature trickle down to the baseline iPhones. From my opinion, I'm a big fan of high refresh displays and would have loved to see Apple incorporate it in at least their higher end models this year. But again, it's user preference and many people won't mind that this is left out. Now, the second thing is that at low brightness, the iPhone 12 does suffer from PWM flickering. Now, I think that this may be an inherent feature on OLED displays in general because my OnePlus has PWM flicker as well, but it's something to just note. So be warned that if you are sensitive to this, it could be very distracting. Now, Apple is also touting a new ceramic shield coating baked into the display. The technology is based upon the incorporation of nano-sized ceramic crystals within the glass of the display, and Apple claims theoretically that you have 4 times better drop protection than the glass used in previous models. Thus far, it seems like their claims are, to an extent, true. I don't know how accurately one could measure 4 times better drop resistance, just because the nature of how the phone falls and what part is impacted upon will play probably a greater part in the damage to your screen. In addition, it should also be noted that scratch resistance is relatively similar to previous models, so don't expect a miraculously damage-proof screen. Now, I'm obviously not going to test these things, but there are plenty of videos out there for those that are interested to know. Anyway, let's talk about battery life. The iPhone 12 comes with a 2815 mAh battery, and whilst that might seem anemic compared to the likes of some Android flagships out there, Apple's power-efficient A14 chip alongside their iOS 14 really contributes to amazing battery life here. We are talking well into 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, bearing in mind that in Australia we have very limited 5G coverage, so this is all based on the 4G network connectivity. Overall, the battery life is substantially better than the iPhone 11, as tested by other reviewers, and I would have to agree. I would have to be very unlucky to run out of battery life over the course of just a single day. Now, in terms of charging capabilities, you get fast charge up to 20 watts with Apple's fast charger and cable, but of course, there's also the continuation of wireless charging with up to 15 watts of output through the new MagSafe charger that you can buy separately for a nice cool 65 Australian dollars. Unfortunately, there's no reverse charging, so you will still need to find an alternative means of charging your wireless AirPods or earbuds. Given the absence of really any rapid charging technology that's substantial here, I'm probably still going to opt to chuck the 12 onto a slow wireless charger overnight rather than attempting to power juice the crap out of it in the morning, like I do sometimes with my OnePlus 7 Pro. Okay, time to talk about cameras. So the 12 comes with a 12 megapixel dual camera setup, ultra wide and wide, just how it should be. Hardware-wise, they are very similar to the previous generation, except this main wide lens has a wider aperture of 1.6 instead of 1.8, and you of course lack a telephoto lens as well as a LiDAR sensor that you see in the 12 Pro. Theoretically, the wider aperture of the main lens means better low light performance and shallower depth of field, although these kind of things for such a small sensor is something that you not really see. Now, the main difference that you will see, however, is the image processing subsequent to the A14 Bionic chip. Compared to the previous models, you can now use night mode for ultra wide, wide, and even selfie shots, which puts it in close fighting range with the likes of Android flagships like the S20 or the Pixel 5. From what I've seen, images tend to lean towards a more warmer white balance, which I personally like. However, some could argue that the HDR used may be a bit too aggressive in some circumstances. Night mode works pretty well and tends to brighten images quite a lot, but at the cost of sharpness. Most people won't notice this, however, unless pixel peeping. Portrait mode doesn't crop into the image, meaning you will get more environmental portrait shots. And this can sometimes look unnatural given that there's a lack of transition between the foreground and background, but I don't tend to mind it for the occasional food, coffee, or people shot in a pinch. There's also not too much of a discernible color shift between the ultra wide and wide lens, which is good. And the selfie camera is decently wide enough in terms of field of view and can handle HDR situations as well as night mode, as I mentioned previously. I don't have a Pixel 5, so I can't comment on the differences in image quality between these two phones, but based on what I've seen online, I suspect the Pixel 5 may just nudge past the iPhone when it comes to photo quality. Video, however, is in another league of its own. Apple has created a new Dolby Vision HDR format for recording videos on their iPhones. It's available in up to 4K 30 for the iPhone 12 and 4K 60 for the 12 Pro. Viewing side-by-side videos recorded in Dolby Vision versus the non-HDR format, you can seriously tell the difference. The HDR video is just way brighter while still retaining the details in the shadows. However, the only devices that currently support such a format are, well, other Apple products. So until more devices support displaying Dolby Vision videos, it might not be that great of a feature. So you can also record up to 4K 60 on the selfie camera. However, dynamic range isn't the best in this mode. In terms of performance, the new iPhone 12 packs in the A14 Bionic chip, which is their new 5mm mobile processor, also seen in the new iPad Air. Again, there's not a whole lot to complain about here. I don't get any lags or jutters navigating through the UI. Games play smoothly without drop frames. Photo editing works decently well if you need it in a pinch. The one thing I will mention, however, is that there's only 4GB of RAM on board, and whilst I know that iOS is efficient at app loading times, app retention isn't as good as, say, other Android phones such as the Samsung Galaxy S20 range. This is not a huge issue though, and I doubt the majority of people will notice this on a day-to-day basis. Some other quick points before I wrap up. The stereo speakers are really good and have a slightly fuller sound with deeper bass compared to my OnePlus 7 Pro. The volume in terms of quantity though is quite similar. The vibration motor in the iPhone 12 is super tactile and really catches my attention. It's hard to describe, but it just feels clean but strong, almost like something is tapping up against the edge of my finger for certain things, such as holding down an icon to move it around. Setting up the iPhone when it first arrives is super simple. If you have owned a recent Apple device, placing it near the new iPhone will kickstart the setup process. Being able to install a custom keyboard is a very welcome feature, especially as someone who has used an Android phone my entire life is switching over to the iOS system. And on that note, implementation of widgets are great too, but I just wish that there were more widgets available for non-Apple apps. Okay, conclusion time. So, I think if you want to have an iPhone and you have previously been using something like the iPhone 10 or 10s or anything from the previous Apple generations, then the iPhone 12 is a great upgrade. Compared to the 11, it's got a new design, it's got a better screen, it's got better battery life, it's got the new A14 chip, it's more easy to handle despite housing the same screen size, it's got night mode on all cameras, and it's got better video processing. All for only 100 Australian dollars more than the 11. I would definitely not recommend the 12 Pro given the similarities and features it has with the 12. Really the only extra things you get is the telephoto camera, the LiDAR sensor for augmented reality, HDR in 4K 60, and a higher baseline storage amount. It costs 279 Australian dollars more, however, than the same storage amount, which is 128GB in the iPhone 12. For those where money is not an issue, I would wait for the 12 Pro Max. If you own a recent iPhone such as the 11 or SE, I would probably stick to what you have unless you are really itching to upgrade. Android users, probably stay where you are because for me, the iPhone is a great phone, but given what I currently have with the OnePlus 7 Pro, I can't justify the price gap. The OnePlus does 95% of what the iPhone does. In some respects, it does it even better. Of course, the photos aren't as good and it's a bit bulkier, but those things don't matter a great deal to me. And the moral of the story here is really just get a phone that will suit you and your budget. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This one was a long one, but hopefully a good one. Let me know of any questions you have below and make sure to like and subscribe in the meantime. I'll be keeping my eye out, but until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Thanks.